Deidre, come on up here. It is my very great pleasure to introduce Deidre DeJear. Among her, I'm going to let her tell you about herself, but the one thing I want to say is, was it last week that President Obama endorsed Deidre DeJear? It doesn't get any better than that.
Well, I'm going to be quick because I know I'm literally standing between you and this awesome mind over here. I am just really excited to be here today, really excited about the specific race that I'm running for, Secretary of State. You know, it's not one of those races that we often flock to vote for, flock to learn about, but it's so, so important. You've heard from folks from almost every aspect of our government in our state. You've heard from folks on the county level. You've heard from folks on the state district level. You'll hear from the federal level twice. And when we think about each and every one of those folks that we're trying to get elected, what bridges each and every one of those folks together is our ability to vote for them. And if you imagine our democracy, a door, it says democracy on it. The key to our democracy is our vote. And in the state of Iowa, the person who holds that key is the Secretary of State. And I'm convinced, folks, it's time for Paul Pate to turn over the key. We had the ultimate pleasure of being endorsed by the president this week or last week, and what that meant to me was a salute and saying, we appreciate the values that you hold dear to you, the value of the vote. And not only were we excited about the endorsement that he gave us, but we were excited about all of the support that brought us through the primary. We only won by 3,500 votes. But that was a strong 3,500 votes. And we're so proud of that. But before I worked for, the reason why he endorsed us, I worked for him in 2012. I was a campus organizer in 2008. But before I worked for the president, before I even knew who Barack Obama was, I knew who Maddie K. Washington was. And most of you all probably don't know Maddie K. Washington. ICA knows because they heard me talk about her, but she's a teacher for over 35 years. And she was also Yazoo County Elections Commissioner in Mississippi. She's also my grandma. And Maddie K. decided about year 25 or so that she was going to run for Yazoo County Elections Commissioner. Why? Well, she was trying to get her students engaged in the voter process, trying to get them to care. She was a social studies teacher and a math teacher, and they weren't trying to hear it. So she said, fine, I'll leave y'all alone, and I'll go find your parents. And she did just that. And Maddie K. called on me to work on her campaign. And for any of you all grandmas out there, you know we're not allowed to say no to y'all. And I definitely wasn't going to say no to Maddie K. She stands at 6'5". She's about 220. Wears a size 14 shoe. If I said no, that shoe was going to be somewhere off the ground. And so I was, you know, in hindsight, I'm elated that my grandma got me engaged in her campaign. And the reason being is because she was subliminally planting the seeds in me of the importance of the vote. Keep in mind, Maddie K. lives in Mississippi, is still there. And she had to endure times where it was difficult for women to vote, where it was difficult for African Americans to vote. And she stood the test of signs and stood in the gap with people who supported each and every eligible voter in our state participating, specifically in Mississippi. And so I took that with me to the state of Iowa. And the reason why I did is because I couldn't help but love voting. At the end of the day, we can sit in groups like this, we can blog on Facebook, we can write op-eds in the Register or any of our county papers, but what draws the line in the sand is our ability to vote, yay or nay, for her or for him. And we're in a point in time in our lives, folks, where there's folks out there who don't believe that their vote counts, They don't believe that it matters. My job in 2012 was to travel throughout the state, getting hard to reach populations to vote. So I've heard every excuse that exists under the sun as to why people choose not to vote. And I've got all the reasons why they should. Because our state depends on it. Our state depends on the voice of the people. Why? Because if it doesn't, then we don't get people elected that represent our values. There's folks that are still struggling from the recession, had to let their house go and have yet to get one back. You know, my dad suffered through the recession. An entrepreneur himself, had a home care agency, and had to put that to bed because it was no longer cost effective for him to do that, and had to let some staff go as a result. And I was in college at that time and felt the pain. No longer did I get gas money. I had to get a job. I needed one. I did. But I'm just so excited about the space that we're in our state. And we're at a point where we can be preventative versus reactive. There's people out there that are looking for a home, looking for a voice, and us in this room, we're the people to welcome them. We're the people to get them excited. We're the people to get them motivated. You know, the Secretary of State's job is to encourage people to participate in our elections. Not just the big ones, all of them. I've worked on small races too, like school board. And I found that it was easier to get people engaged in those school board races than it was a presidential one. I'd knock on people's doors for the president. Oh, no, I'm not voting for him. He hadn't fixed my sidewalk. It's been broken for 2 years. Well, I'm glad that you acknowledge that's an issue, but that's not the person to fix it. You could talk to someone about these small races. You could show them the margins of victory, how the issues that mean the most to them could be resolved with electing those individuals. But we see minimal turnout in those races. 5 to 10% turnout in those races. In this last primary election, 13% of Iowans that are registered to vote participated. Now teachers, if I bring you a test that says 13%, do I get a gold star? Because there's room for improvement. But yet we have a Secretary of State that bragged about that 13%. And I know we can do better. Folks, we're home of the Iowa caucuses, first in the nation. And so when we say that in that same breath, I want us to say we're #1 in voter participation. We're #1 in voter registration because we are so capable of doing that. We just need a leader. We just need a Secretary of State. We need a Secretary of State who genuinely is focused and prioritizing getting people out to vote rather than carving them out. Because that's what his focus has been. Carving people out of the process, impacting our most vulnerable populations, our most vulnerable. And we know we can do better than that. You know, I always start with the business component, but y'all had me fired up with all the other speeches. I'm also a small business owner. We're in a small business right now, giving them all our money, and I'm loving it. But I took the fever from my dad and started my business in 2008 while I was still in college, while I was still a senior at Drake. And I started that business to help other businesses grow. It was the brink of the recession. Folks were getting laid off from their jobs. Some of them had no choice but to become entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to help them market themselves. I wanted to help them put themselves out there. I thought I was making the big bucks at Bankers Trust, $11 an hour. So I was like, okay, I can charge them a little bit because the going rate at that time was $75 to $100 an hour. They couldn't afford that. And so a lot of times I was working for free, but I didn't care because I was so passionate about them being able to provide the products and services to their customer base. The Secretary of State is that space for anyone wanting to do business in our state. They have to go through that office first because they can't get a bank account until they do, right? That's right. So we know they have to go there. So let's not only connect them to the resources to get them started. Let's make sure they're connected to the resources that are going to help them grow. Because for so many of our business owners, sometimes they're one close of business day away from closing their doors indefinitely. And we don't know what economic trials and tribulations are ahead of us. But our small businesses are on Main Street. They're operating out of their homes. They have acreages because our farmers are small business owners too. And we need to make sure that they are equipped to weather the storm. And we can do that in the Secretary of State's office because the resources already exist. We just need to be the bridge in between. And we're going to do that. But I'm not Secretary of State yet, though. So, for the next 90 days, I need your help. I need your help. You know, Rob gave you the whole door knocking spiel. We need you to do that. We need you to do that. But what I also need you to do is vote early. Why? I know some of us are traditionalists. We like to go the day of, take our photo, take our grandkids, take our kids, because that's what we've done for so long. But these are different times, folks. These are different times, and I'm asking you to sacrifice that tradition just for 1 year. I'm asking you to vote early this year. Why? Because on Election Day, I need you guys taking folks to the polls. Those people who've been putting it off, I need y'all's help in taking them to the polls and persuading them that we want to hear your voice. This is a partisan office, but it has nonpartisan implications. I know some of y'all might be mad at me, but we got to have Republicans voting just like we got to have Democrats voting, just like we have to have Libertarians voting and Independents voting. I'm a former basketball coach, and anytime we won a game, I wanted there to be no excuses as to why we won. In fact, 2011, my team was the girls' state champions. And that was the East Side Scarlets. East Side Scarlets in Des Moines. We were undefeated that season, and each and every time we won a game, you know, we didn't want there to be any excuses. They could tell us, oh, your balls were flat, your floor was dirty, the refs were in your favor, so we made sure those balls were aired up. We made sure the floor was clean, because I had to clean it, and I guarantee you the refs were not in our favor at all. And so when the score comes out on November 6th, I want there to be no reasons, no excuses why we won. We are going to put everything into this. Our hard work, our dedication, our blood, our sweat, our tears, because there's this saying that goes, hard work guarantees nothing, but without it, we don't stand a chance. So can we do this? Yeah. Are y'all ready for November 6th? Awesome. If I have inspired you to vote early, please come find me. We have absentee request forms for you to complete, but we are so excited. Again, my name is Deidre DeJear. It's a funky name, but I need you to walk your way down the ballot and find it so we can make some magic happen in the Secretary of State.
Woo! Yeah. You know what you got to do now, don't you? Yeah. We'd like to see you all on over at the office. We're going to be doing phone banking on Wednesday nights for the next several weeks.